I'm Kerslake, I'm Chief Executive of the Prince's Regeneration Trust. One of the reasons I think we suffer from so many buildings being at risk in this country and so many buildings deteriorating is that in a way we almost have too much heritage in the United Kingdom and we don't value it as we should. So I think the first thing that we need to do as a country is to value our heritage, and I think one of the reasons why that's been a challenge is historically that's been seen as people wanting to almost sort of wrap buildings in cotton wool, set them in aspect, not see them as part of our living, thriving economy. So I think what we need to do is look at heritage very differently, look at it not as just bits of the past that we keep and preserve in museums and in places that aren't really used, but actually part of the places where we live, part of what makes places vibrant, what makes them really attractive, makes people want to go there. And I think if we looked at them differently, and we looked at them that way, we would have less of an issue with so many redundant buildings. Actually, if you think about it and look around the country, it's incredibly difficult to create a really successful place starting completely from scratch. And that's because the places in this country have grown up over hundreds, in some cases thousands of years. So they have something that is totally organic about them. And if we allow heritage buildings, old buildings, not necessarily really important listed buildings, but just the buildings that make a place familiar, that make it distinctive, to be demolished, then the danger is that everything becomes incredibly uniform because there isn't that ability to recreate, really, that sense of layer upon layer that comes from somewhere that has grown over time. That's not to say you can never change anything. I think there are times when you have to say that this is somewhere where maybe the buildings are not capable of reuse or in a very poor state of repair, or perhaps they actually were never very good buildings in the first place. But if that does happen, then I think what we really need to be careful about is that what you're putting in its place is the heritage of the future. One of the wonderful things about being the Chief Executive of the Prince's Regeneration Trust is that it's given me the opportunity to see so many fantastic projects that have been brought forward by really determined and committed community groups in local areas who've been absolutely passionate about ensuring that the heritage in their area is rescued, is reused and is given a fresh life. And when I look around at the projects that we've been involved in, it's very hard to pick actually one project that stands out from the others. But I suppose if I was really pressed to do so, I think what was achieved at Sowerby Bridge, in the reuse of the wharf buildings there and the way in which not only has there been more jobs created than was ever there before when it had its original use, but actually there's a really catalytic effect on the regeneration in the area. You can see that by bringing jobs and activity into Sowerby Bridge itself, that there are lots of new houses that have been built around it. It's a very vibrant area now, and yet it's retained the communities that were originally involved. So that to me is a really successful project. And you can see that repeated around the country. Things like Harvey's Foundry in Cornwall, which is a really wonderful project with enormous commitment at a local level. Anchor Mills, a project which the Trust itself undertook with Persimmon, and indeed Stanley Mills, the very first project which we were ever involved in, and which now, following further work by Historic Scotland and the completion of a museum and exhibition centre, has created a really wonderful place that is indeed award-winning. For me, heritage has become a passion, partly because of where I was brought up. I was born in Bath and was lucky enough to go to school in Wells and Somerset, which is a beautiful medieval city with many wonderful buildings. But also because over time you can see so much as you look around you of buildings that people have put such huge personal investment into. The Victorians, I think, were the masters of this. As they created their industrial buildings, as they created their offices, as they created their factories, they put huge passion into them, and you can see it in the quality of what they've built. And it seems therefore to me that it would be a tragedy if we didn't keep and reuse those buildings. And for me, the ones that really appeal are actually the industrial building, the little water towers that had a very utilitarian purpose and yet were built really beautifully, but built in a way in which the people that created them were proud of. And I think not to respect that, not to value the commitment and the personal energy and passion that they put into creating something beautiful would be tragic. It would be a huge loss. And I just wish that we were putting the same energy and passion into creating the heritage of the future.